Hello, welcome to the Sound of Science, the place where we deconstruct unscientific bogus and silly scams. Let's go get them. There is no good reason to believe in the existence of a God. No good reason whatsoever. Let me explain. Look around you. Look at this world. This world looks exactly like what you'd expect from a world without a God. There is war, there is disease, there is famine, there is crime, there is natural disasters. Exactly what you would expect from a world that is ruled by a combination of natural processes and human interactions. If there would be some loving and all-powerful God, you wouldn't expect to see suffering on such an unimaginable scale as we see in our world. If a good and all-powerful God were to exist, he wouldn't allow so much suffering to continue for thousands of years. Christians, by the way, came up with a horrible explanation for this problem. We are all wicked, and therefore we deserve all that suffering. What a ridiculous idea. Babies and children didn't do anything wrong. Yet the Christian God decided it was a good idea to invent bone cancer and give it to children. I've met so many Christians in my comment section who told me that children deserve to get that horrible disease. It's one of the lowest manifestations of Christianity. And each and every time when I see a Christian coming up with that atrocious explanation, it reminds me of the horrible things that religion can do to people. But let's go back to there not being any good reason to believe in any God. So then let's look at the supposed holy book of the Christian God. I want to take that as an example because I don't know much about other religions, and Christianity still is the largest religion in the world. Does the Christian holy book point at an all-powerful and loving God? No, it doesn't. It shows a very violent and hateful God who murders millions of innocent babies and children by deliberately drowning them in a planned and systematic manner. It always astonishes me that Christians don't know about this or simply deny it. But for everyone to see, it's in the Genesis chapter of the Old Testament. God is angry at people because some of them have been wicked, so he kills all of them, including their babies and children, and he doesn't even bother to kill them in a kind of a humane and painless way. No, he decides to slowly drown them, which causes unimaginable suffering for millions of people. Let the lesson to be learned from this be clear. If you disobey the Christian God, he will slaughter you and your family. And despite the Christian God committing these horrible atrocities, there are 2.4 billion people who worship him for that. That is why so many non-Christians, including myself, consider it an insult if people pray for me to their Christian God, or if they tell me that their God will bless me. I don't need a blessing from a God who commits genocide and who wants to torture me for not obeying him. That God should leave me alone and sod off. And you know how many Christians respond to this? They often say, "You will find out at the gates of hell." So many Christians in my comment section. They threaten non-Christians with eternal torture, and they worship their God for burning us for eternity. Such lovely people. But let's return to the Bible. If any of it is true, then the Christian God is not a loving God at all. We see a Christian God who is fine with his holy book containing instructions about how to beat up slaves and instructions about killing gay people and non-believers. It's atrocious. No good God would want to be associated with that kind of a horrible book. Then what else do we've got? we've got the official institutions that represent this supposed almighty and loving God. For example, the Catholic Church, an institution that is responsible for murdering, torturing and raping millions of people throughout the centuries. And even now there are mountains of evidence proving the atrocities committed by Catholic priests. The Catholic Church still protects predators who should be behind bars. The Catholic Church still denies the stories of their victims, and the perpetrators can still walk freely in the streets where your children are playing. How can a good God let that kind of institution represent him? Then have a look at the least religious countries in the world. Countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Japan, Australia, the Netherlands, United Kingdom. Those countries are among the freest, richest, happiest and safest countries in the world. And the most religious countries in the world are the exact opposite. They are among the most oppressive, the poorest, the unhappiest and the most dangerous countries in the world. No good God would accept that the people who worship him would have to live in such unfortunate places. Then have a look at the supposed evidence that Christians present you in order to prove their God. It's mostly nonsense. They tell you that because a tree exists, a God must exist, which is total nonsense. They will tell you that the universe is fine-tuned for life, which is even more nonsensical. About the entire universe is totally unsuitable for life as we know it. We can't even survive on about 95% of the Earth because it's too wet, too dry, too cold or too hot in most places. They will tell you that they talk to their God, which doesn't mean anything. There are people who claim they talk to Elvis. They will tell you that you can't prove that their God doesn't exist, which is meaningless as well. They can't prove that vampires don't exist. And of course they will tell you that their God exists because their ridiculous and violent Bible storybook says so, which of course is also meaningless. The storybook of the Lord of the Rings says that Gandalf exists. Why would we think that storybooks such as the Bible and the Lord of the Rings are true? Then look at the thousands of different religions and religious denominations we see all around the globe. People from all over the world worship about 4,000 different gods. All of them are totally different, with different origin stories, different creation stories, different prophets and different sets of rules about what to do and what not to do. And because of all those religious differences, people have been fighting hundreds of religious wars throughout the centuries. No good God would allow for a situation like that. No good God would sit back and watch millions of people kill each other just because they don't agree about who worships the right God. Finally, let's have a look at the character of the Christian God. This Christian God created a place Christians call hell, and they believe that their God designed and created this place with the sole purpose of torturing those who reject him. That is not the mindset of a loving God. That is the mindset of a brutal dictator. No good God would ever do such a thing. Considering all of this, there is no good reason to believe in the existence of any God whatsoever. But luckily, there is science, and science offers us loads of explanations of how the universe operates without any need for any God. Well, if you made it till the end of this video, then you've got good reason to subscribe to my channel, because if you do, you will support me, helping me to make more videos in which I debunk nonsense and spread the sound of science. Thanks.